We don't need to look to ancient tales for hauntings. Today, a thoroughly modern haunted house known as the Sallie House in Atchison, Kansas, has become a legend in the modern ghost hunting community. It has been called the most haunted house in America by many paranormal experts, not because of ghosts gliding through the night, but because of the violent and targeted physical attacks from the forces that reside within. The story of the Sallie House is a journey from curiosity to absolute terror. A tale of children's toys moving on their own, mysterious fires and deep bloody scratches appearing on the skin of the living. And at the center of it all is a terrifying question. Is the spirit haunting this place a little girl who died in agony? Or is that just a facade for something far more ancient and evil? The history of the Sallie House begins in the mid-1800s when it was built for the Finney family. Dr. Charles Finney, one of the few doctors in town at the time, used the house as both his residence and his practice. His family lived upstairs while the ground floor served as his examination and surgery rooms. In the early 20th century, when hospitals were not yet common in small towns like Atchison, family doctors had to handle everything, including emergency cases. It was in this context that the legend of Sallie was born. The story goes that, on one fateful day, a frantic mother rushed to Dr. Finney's door carrying her 6-year-old daughter, Sallie. The little girl had collapsed from severe abdominal pain. Dr. Finney quickly diagnosed her with acute appendicitis and realized her appendix was on the verge of rupturing, a potentially fatal condition. Knowing there was no time to delay, he hurriedly placed Sallie on the operating table and began to administer anesthesia. However, in his panic and believing the girl was only moments from death, Dr. Finney made a terrible mistake. He started the first incision before the anesthesia had fully taken effect. Little Sallie awoke to the excruciating pain of the scalpel cutting into her flesh. Her screams echoed briefly before suddenly stopping as her body went pale and limp. She had died on the operating table from shock and blood loss. Sallie's last memory was of a man she believed was torturing her. This tragic legend became the foundation for all subsequent supernatural events. However, it is important to note that there is no physical evidence, no birth or death certificate to confirm the existence or death of a girl named Sallie at this address. Some even suggest the story was fabricated by a former mayor to attract tourists to Atchison. But for the Pickman family, who moved in nearly a century later, the ghost of Sallie was all too real. In 1992, Tony and Deborah Pickman, a newly married couple expecting their first child, moved into the house in Atchison. They found the 100-year-old home charming and decorated one of the upstairs bedrooms into a sweet nursery. For the first few months, everything was normal. Then strange things began to happen. Light bulbs would frequently burn out, the oven timer would turn on by itself, and their cordless phone would sometimes go dead and then suddenly work again. At first, they just chalked it up to old wiring. But there was one thing they couldn't explain. Their normally gentle dog would often bark and growl aggressively at nothing in the baby's room. The first truly alarming incident occurred shortly after their son Taylor was born. One day, after being out, Tony and Deborah went upstairs to put the baby in his crib. When they entered the room, they were horrified to find all of the baby's stuffed animals, which were normally on a chair, arranged in a circle in the middle of the floor. Fearing a break-in, they searched the house but found no one. They put the toys back on the chair, placed Taylor in his crib, and went downstairs. But just as they reached the bottom of the stairs, they saw the light in the nursery flick back on. They rushed upstairs and found one of the teddy bears on the floor again. Completely terrified, they called Tony's brother Larry to come over. When Larry arrived, everything was quiet again. But as they prepared to go downstairs once more, they discovered that a teddy bear downstairs had turned to face a different direction on its own. The three of them decided to leave the house and spend the night at Tony's mother's. Larry contacted a psychic he knew in California named Barbara. Over the phone, Barbara provided some astonishing information. There was a ghost in the house. It was a young girl, and her name was Sallie. At the same time, Tony's mother had reached out to an old friend who used to live in the house. The woman said her family never had any major problems except that her young children would often leave their toys scattered on the floor and always blamed a friend named Sallie. At the time, she had just assumed Sallie was an imaginary friend. Now, the Pickman family had two independent sources confirming the presence of a spirit named Sallie in their home. The psychic, Barbara, reassured the family that Sallie was just a sweet little girl who wanted to play and feel like a part of the family. This calmed Deborah down. She began talking to Sallie and even bought the ghost a doll, wrapping it carefully as a gift. Shortly after placing the doll on a chair, she found it in Taylor's crib, while the box and gift wrap remained completely undisturbed. Deborah began to feel a protective, almost motherly connection to Sallie, and often dismissed Tony's growing fears. But while Deborah felt at peace, Tony's experience became increasingly terrifying. The phenomena seemed to target only him. Sallie is said to be a man-hating ghost, perhaps because her last memory was of a man causing her immense pain. The first physical attack occurred when Tony was trying to buckle his son into his car seat. He suddenly felt a sharp pain in his back. When he was safely at his family's house, he checked and was horrified to find 3 deep, bloody scratches on his back. From then on, the attacks grew worse. Tony started hearing whispers that Deborah couldn't hear, then the voices became louder, overlapping each other until he couldn't understand them. One night, while having dinner with friends, Tony's forehead suddenly began to bleed. Everyone present watched in horror as a deep scratch was slowly carved into his forehead by an invisible hand. Tony also had dreams of being dragged out of bed only to wake up and find blisters around his wrists in the shape of small fingerprints. In addition to the personal attacks, small fires also began to break out mysteriously around the house. Even though Deborah tried talking to Sallie and asking her to stop, the fires continued. The Pickman family's horrifying story attracted the attention of the popular ghost hunting television show, Sightings. When the film crew arrived and began to interview Tony, they witnessed the house's violence firsthand. Right in front of the camera, Tony was attacked again by an unseen force with new scratches appearing on his body. More chillingly, they found the letters MC carved into his back, believed to be the initials of Michael Finney, the original owner of the house. In a single night, the film crew counted 11 separate attacks on Tony. After the film crew left, the Pickmans agreed to let a psychic cleanse the house. However, during the process, Deborah requested that the psychic allow Sallie's spirit to stay. It seemed the spirits were angered by the attempt to banish them. The cleansing failed spectacularly. Tony was violently attacked, receiving 8 of the deepest scratches he had ever endured. After that, the situation deteriorated further. Tony began to experience blackouts. During one of these, he was horrified to discover he had killed a stray cat that had wandered into their home with a butcher knife, all while voices in his head urged him to stab his wife next. Shortly after, while standing at the top of the stairs, he was pushed by an unseen force with such strength that it broke the railing. This was the final straw. Deborah finally realized that they could no longer live safely in this house. Within 2 weeks, the Pickman family packed up and moved out, leaving the house to its angry spirits. Many later investigators proposed a more terrifying theory. Sallie was not the main entity. They believed that a malevolent entity, possibly a demon, resides in the basement of the house. It is this demon that orchestrated the violent attacks on Tony and manipulated the other spirits, including Sallie, to lure in unsuspecting victims. It may have even influenced Deborah's thoughts, causing her to become irrationally fond of and protective over Sallie. Since the Pickman family left, the Sallie House has had no permanent residents. It has become a famous destination for paranormal tourism. open for daytime tours and overnight investigations for the brave. Visitors are required to sign a legal waiver due to the potential for personal injury. Countless ghost hunting teams and visitors have reported similar phenomena. Equipment suddenly failing, fully charged batteries instantly draining, objects moving on their own, and most importantly, many have left with unexplained scratches and bruises on their bodies. The Sallie House still stands, a horrifying puzzle in the heartland of America. Is it the resting place of a tragic little girl, a spirit who just wants to play but sometimes loses control? Or is that just an innocent mask hiding something far more sinister, a demon waiting for its next victim? Whatever the answer, the Sallie House remains a chilling warning that sometimes the most ordinary-looking houses hide the darkest nightmares. If you enjoy true horror stories, like and subscribe to the channel. We're always happy to create new videos for you.